We're going through some tough times right now, as Marty pointed out, as Kevon pointed out, and as Monique pointed out. We're going through some tough times. And if you go to any steelworker right now, steelworkers will tell you, whether you're a steelworker, you're working in an aluminum producing factory, you're working in a factory that manufactures anything, those workers are worried that they might be the next to lose their jobs. Marty already pointed out, workers are already losing their jobs right now. And in this time, when workers are losing their job, they need to know that employment insurance is going to be there for them. There's going to be some programs in place for them so they can keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, and keep paying their bills. But right now, that is not the case. And I want to point out that Mark Carney has been prime minister for a week now. He's found the time to go to Europe. He's found the time to bring in a tax cut for millionaires, but he has done nothing for workers who are losing their jobs in this country. Nothing. He's done nothing to help out people and say, you know what, if you are going to lose your job, we're going to have your back. He's done nothing in a week, facing the most serious economic crisis we've been up against in a generation. And Pierre Poilievre, I want to point out Pierre Poilievre as well. He showed up to a factory where 30 workers lost their jobs and proposed a tax cut for the business. Shame. He said nothing to the workers who actually lost their job. He said nothing to the people who are now wondering, how am I going to keep a roof over my head? Nothing for them. But it shows you who Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are in it for. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. They're not in it for the worker. That's the difference between them and us. New Democrats are proud to say we were founded by working people. We're a party founded by unions. And so it should come as no surprise that we want to see a worker-led economy where workers are first. So the first step of a New Democrat government would be to immediately make sure EI can help workers keep a roof over their head, keep food on the table, and pay their bills. We will make that happen. Workers are fighting back. Workers got their elbows up. They're ready to fight back against Donald Trump. They need a government that's got their back, a government that's going to fight for working people, not for the billionaires. On top of that, we need to create an economy where we are more resilient, where we are stronger. So we need to build Canadian jobs, building Canada up using Canadian content and Canadian workers. Let's use only Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian content in any infrastructure project across this country. Let's build jobs that create good paying jobs where we're using Canadian steel, Canadian content to build up our country. Let's build a more resilient Canada. And also, what's become really clear is we need to make sure that we stop. Right now, the vulnerability that we have is that there's a lot of threat of foreign takeovers of Canadian industries. Let's prevent that from happening, strengthening Canadian industry and not letting foreign takeovers happen. And finally, we've obviously got to diversify our trade relations. So we're going to work on making sure we trade to more countries so we're not so dependent on the U.S. But let us be really clear. In this election, Canadians have a choice. You got Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre who are showing you who they are and who they're in it for. They're in it to defend billionaires. They're in it for the CEOs. They're in it for the big bosses. That's who they're in it for. We're in it for the workers. We're in it for everyday people. We're in it for you. So if you want someone that's going to fight for you and your family, that's us. That's New Democrats. If you want someone that's going to defend the profits of billionaires and CEOs, well, that's Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney. We're going to constantly, and every single day of this campaign, let Canadians know who we're in it for. We're in it for you. We're going to fight for you. We're going to put you first. We need a worker-centric economy. You need a pro-worker prime minister. That's New Democrats. That's me. That's right. Donc, on est dans un temps difficile, c'est clair. Mais je suis tellement reconnaissant et je veux remercier les Met à l'eau pour leur appui. J'accepte cet appui. Je veux remercier.
All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be back as Jagmeet Singh takes questions from reporters in Hamilton this morning.
Et on sait dans ces temps difficiles.
When arthritis pain makes the stairs feel like a summit, there's Tylenol Arthritis with 2 layers of pain relief. One acts fast, one lasts for up to 8 hours, and it's gentle on your stomach. Tylenol Arthritis, made for everyday moments.
First, we won J.D. Power, ranking Ram the #1 brand in new vehicle quality. Then we won 2025 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. Now, we're throwing our weight around even more with the new Ram Heavy Duty. Well, you know what they say. You win some, you'll win some. And every win is inspired by the ones who drive us. Ram, built to serve.
Swiss Chalet Seafood Fest is back. Hurry in for Canada's famous rotisserie chicken paired with garlic shrimp, our delicious fish and chips, fish sandwich, or our popcorn shrimp appetizer. All here for a limited time, starting from only $16.99, only at Swiss Chalet.
You know, retirement doesn't have to mean giving something up. It should mean living life on your own terms. Well, thankfully, if you're a Canadian homeowner, age 55 and better, you can access some of your home's value in tax-free cash with CHIP. That way, you can live retirement on your own terms. Stay in the home and the neighborhood that you love. Because there's no place like home. Right, Rocky?
If you're 55 or older, call now for your free, no-obligation CHIP reverse mortgage guide. With CHIP, you could get up to 55% of your home's value in tax-free cash. Take only what you need in a lump sum or over time with no monthly mortgage payments required. Call 1-866-519-2447.
Maybe it's time for you to consider CHIP too.
Call now for your free no-obligation guide. Call 1-866-519-2447. That's 1-866-519-CHIP. Or visit chip.ca. Call CHIP today and live retirement your way.
Whenever they drink, and wherever they drink, whatever they may be drinking, and whoever they're drinking with, whether it's alcohol or drugs, impaired drivers pose a danger to us all. If you suspect an impaired driver, call 911 to report it as a crime in progress to the police. We call it Operation Lookout, and we want you to be part of it. Thanks for helping to keep our roads safe. A message from Arrive Alive, Drive Sober.
The Transportation Safety Board of Canada has just released its preliminary findings into what happened when a Delta Airlines plane crash-landed at Pearson Airport last month. Delta Airlines Flight 4819 crashed and flipped onto its roof on a runway February 17th. All 80 passengers and crew were able to escape safely. 21 people were hurt. Among the findings, the right landing gear failed upon landing. Investigators noted the Delta plane was flying within its allowable weight and balance limitations, meaning it wasn't operating in a way that would have hindered the integrity of the plane. All right, we're going to take you back to Hamilton. Here's NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh.
That economic plan put in first, and then we go to an election. But it's clear that Mark Carney wants to go first in an election, and so that's what's going to happen. But we're ready for the election. And in this election, the choice is clear. Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre have already shown you they're in it for the billionaires. They're in it for rich CEOs. They're in it for those at the top. We're in it for you. We're in it for workers. And that's why we're so honored to receive the endorsement of United Steelworkers with great honor.
This area has typically been an NDP stronghold. How do you plan on maintaining that and then growing more support in this area?
We want workers to know when you're up against a question in this trade war, where you've got Donald Trump threatening workers, threatening our very existence, our very country, who's going to fight for you and your family, and not the billionaires, not the CEOs? That's really a question I want folks to ask themselves. And we're going to show that here on the mountain with Monique Taylor. You know that's someone that's going to fight for you and your family. That's not someone that's going to suck up to a CEO or try to please a billionaire. That's not what you get with Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, though. It's pretty clear they've shown you their priorities. Mark Carney, in his week as Prime Minister, did trips to Europe and cut taxes for millionaires. That was his priority. He did not put in place anything for workers. Pierre Poilievre literally showed up to a factory not far from here in Burlington where workers actually lost their jobs. And his proposal was a tax cut for big businesses. That was literally his proposal, standing in front of workers who lost their jobs. That shows you who he's in it for. Who we're in it for is you. One of the first things that we're going to do as government is make sure that EI is there for you. If you ever lose your job, there's going to be something in place that's going to keep a roof over your head, that's going to keep food on the table, that's going to make sure you can pay your bills. That's the difference. We're worried about workers. They're worried about billionaires.
All right, how do you envision fighting back against Trump? Because it seems like every day he comes up with a new twist, a new walk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we know what he's going to do next. I don't think anyone knows what he's going to do next. I don't think he knows what he's going to do next. He wants to create chaos, and he really wants to hurt people. I've called him an arsonist because he's setting fire not just to our economy, he's setting fire to his own economy. He's hurting workers and people in the United States. So we got to fight back against that, and there's lots of ways to fight back. But what I'm particularly concerned about is who we're fighting for. We've seen really the type of fight that's in front of us has to be one where we put workers first. But we've already seen where Pierre, Poilievre, and Mark Carney want to go. They're already talking about big tax cuts for millionaires, tax cuts for big corporations. None of that's going to guarantee that working people actually get their fair share. That's the difference. So in the fight with Donald Trump, I want you to ask yourselves, who do you think is going to actually put your family first? Who's going to put working people first? It's not going to be Pierre Poilievre. It's certainly not going to be Mark Carney. It's going to be us. Back to you. Yep.
We all right?
Just try that one more time. I think we lost the audio, but it should come back right now.
Oh, mic check 1 2 1 2. You hear me all right now?
I do. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, talking about Mark Carney and tax cuts. One thing you talked about wanting to get rid of the capital gains tax. We haven't seen how they do that yet. But one thing he has talked that they have done is bring in the Orderly Council to get rid of the consumer carbon price. What would an NDP government do on that front?
Well, I mean, that decision has already been made. And we said for a long time that in the fight against the climate crisis, what we're worried about is the two approaches of the Liberals and the Conservatives. The Liberals let big polluters off the hook. They didn't really go after them the right way, and it put a lot of burden on working people. We raised that as a concern. And then with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives, they want to see no limit to how much big polluters can pollute. That's clearly a bad plan as well. We don't want big polluters to poison our air, our water, our land. So we need a plan that goes after big polluters, that supports workers, and that actually reduces our emissions. That's what we're going to put forward in the campaign, and I look forward to sharing the details of our plan. But you're going to see those elements. We're going to support working people. We're going to make the big polluters pay, and we're going to reduce our emissions.
And of course, we've seen a more and more polarized electorate, threats to candidates, constituency offices, things like that over the last couple of years, including protesters getting in your own face not that long ago. What is the NDP doing for candidate security and volunteer security in and around the election?
It's a good question. I know one of the things I'm really worried about with some of the increasing tension in politics is there's some really amazing candidates who may not put their name forward. And that, to me, is a big worry. I want people to want to put their name forward because we're better off when more people come forward and put their names forward as candidates. We want more people to participate. We don't want people to feel discouraged. So this is a part of the reason why we got to focus in our critiques on the policies. You're going to hear me point out the problems with the policies of Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre. The fact that they're putting billionaires first and not putting workers first. The fact that they're neglecting actually workers and what they're going through. The workers behind me, they need someone that's going to say, hey, every single day when I wake up, what am I going to do to make working people's lives better? That's what a leader should do. That's what a politician should do. And that's what I'm going to focus on. So when I critique a leader, I'm going to focus on their policies or their bad decisions. And I think it's important for us to make it about the decisions, about what they're doing, and not make it personal. And so, I mean, I encourage folks to keep that as the way we move forward in this campaign. Let's make it about the decisions. Let's make it about people's policies, and let's not make it personal. I said recently, taking shots at someone's kid, it's offline. Whoever that is, whatever party they are, you don't go after a politician's kids. And so we got to make sure we're drawing these lines. Make it about the policies. Make it about each candidate. That's fine. But let's not make it personal. Let's not attack people's families.
Nous allons maintenant à Julien Lapointe avec Radio-Canada. C'est à vous.
Bonjour, M. Singh.
Bonjour.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur les élections. Vous êtes passé.
I'd like to hear your opinion on the elections. There could be a vote in the next couple of months. What's your opinion on the difficulty of recruiting candidates? We have more candidates recruited than the Liberal government. We're proud of the fact that we have extraordinary candidates who are stepping up for our party. I have some candidates behind me here right now, and I'm so proud and appreciative of the quality of the candidates who are putting their names forward for the NDP. In these elections, we have an important choice, and it's so important, and that's who is going to fight for you and your family, who's going to fight to defend the interests of the rich CEOs. Mark Carney and the Liberals have already shown us that their interest and priority is in supporting the rich, and my interest is in defending you and families. My question has to do with the fighter jets and the current approach taken by the government. Do you agree with that approach? I think that by investing in our Canadian forces, we need to make those investments, that's for sure. The problem for a long time has been the fact that the procurement system at the federal level, especially when it comes to equipment for the Canadian Armed Forces, has shown to have historic major problems. I recently said that a new Democratic government would cancel that contract for the F-35s. But we are in favor of a program such as the SAB program. They propose to build a plant here in Canada where aircraft would be manufactured in Canada. We would also be able to maintain those aircraft in Canada. That's the best way to maintain our sovereignty and our national security, so I am in favor of that kind of program. And the fact that it would be in Quebec is excellent. We need to have the capacity to manufacture the things that we need here in Canada. If money is spent, each contract that includes high spending needs to have a component where jobs are created in Canada, and that's why I am in favor of programs such as the SAB contract.
Next, we'll go to Marina with the CBC. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions.
Of course.
The NDP hasn't polled this low in decades. Some projections show that the NDP is at risk of losing up to 3/4 of the seats you have right now. Your own seat is at risk. After all this time of meeting as the leader, what do you think it is that you haven't been able to do to turn things around for the party?
Well, this is a very important election. And I know that Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre would want nothing better than the NDP to disappear so they can continue to give big gifts to the billionaires, to favor rich CEOs, and not have us point out that actually we need an economy that works for working people. I'm sure they would love for us to not point out that they've completely ignored working people. I think Mark Carney would love for me to not be there to point out that a week of him being in Prime Minister, he's found time to do a whole bunch of other things, but nothing for workers at a time when they're actually worried about losing their jobs and they're already losing their jobs. Nothing. Nothing to improve EI. Nothing to say, hey, if you lose your job in this country, we're going to guarantee that you can keep your roof over your head. You're going to keep food on the table. Nothing. And Pierre Poilievre would like nothing more than New Democrats not to be there to point out, you show up to a factory where workers lost their jobs, and you're not going to mention anything for those workers that lost their job? You're going to propose another big tax cut for big corporations? I mean, I'm sure they would like nothing better than that. News for them, news for everybody. We're not going anywhere. We're always going to fight for working people. We're not going anywhere.
If you don't improve the NDP standing in this next election, should you step down as leader?
Right now, we're focused on the election in front of us and the important choice that people have. You want to choose Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, who've already shown you they're in it for the billionaires, or do you want to choose New Democrats who are going to continue to fight for you and your family? That's a choice in this election.
We will now go to Global News. If you can identify yourself, please.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. This is
Of course.
Piper. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. A little bit of feedback noise there, but I think I can get you.
Oh, apologies. Okay. So I just wanted to ask, we've seen a trend in recent polling that progressive voters are moving to the Liberal Party. What is your message to Canadians who think they're voting strategically with the Liberal government to avoid a Poilievre government?
Well, for voters out there, I want you to ask this question of yourself, that in this time, when we've got serious threats from Donald Trump, we got threats to workers, we got threats to our country, who do you think is going to fight for you and your family? Literally, who's going to fight for working people? Because I can tell you, Mark Carney has already shown you who his priority is. He's already proposed tax cuts for millionaires instead of actually anything for working people. Pierre Poilievre's the same thing. He's shown you who he is. He showed up to a factory where workers lost their jobs and didn't offer anything to those workers. We're different. Our priority is you. So in this time, I ask you to ask yourself, who do you want in Ottawa fighting for you? Who do you want in Ottawa who's going to put you and your family first? Who do you think is actually going to prioritize working people over the CEOs? Who's going to prioritize working families over billionaires? That answer is very simple. That's New Democrats.